Hello ladies and gentle peeps, Game Chanel here, and in this video we will talk about how to make a build for any weapon in the game and things you need to know and keep in mind when you create a build of your own. Throughout the video I might refer to some of my old builds, so if you don't know what I'm talking about at times, I'll leave a link in the description down below and you can go back and check those videos out if you want to. On that note, I'm getting close to 250 play hours in this game and I've done a build for almost any weapon. I'm missing only 4 at this point. And I'm starting to run out of ideas what to do, because I don't want to necessarily do, videos on topics that have already been covered. I don't want to do how to farm money guide or how to farm decoration guide, because there's plenty of those out there. So if there's anything specifically that you want me to cover, please let me know in the comments. But yeah, I'm mostly waiting for new content and new monsters to come out, because I'm starting to get a little bit tired of farming the same monster over and over again. So don't worry, I'll still keep uploading videos for Monster Hunter, but I was also thinking about maybe testing some other games, maybe posting some videos of some other games. I regularly play Fortnite, Rainbow Six. Actually this month a free PlayStation Plus title is Bloodborne, so if you're a PlayStation Plus member you can go ahead and download Bloodborne for free. It's somewhat similar to Monster Hunter, I want to say, because there's also builds and stuff you can do. I tested it out the other day and I killed the first 2 bosses and I'm actually enjoying it. It seems like a really good game, especially since I like Dark Souls 3 a lot. It's very similar. So maybe you want to see some videos there, but just let me know in the comments if you would be interested in seeing other games as well. And I want to give that a shot too, because, as I said, it's starting to get a little bit repetitive. So yeah, we'll see. But without further ado, let's get into it. So before I go into the nitty-gritty details on how to create a build and, what you need to look out for, I quickly want to mention 3 things. Number 1, don't let anyone else tell you that your build sucks. Your build doesn't suck. Your build is always viable. It comes down to what you enjoy playing. So if you enjoy playing a support build and not doing that much damage, then go ahead and do it. If you enjoy playing a glass cannon build but you might end up dying, then that's fine. You can go ahead and do that. Don't let anyone tell you that your build sucks, because it doesn't. There's a reason why you're playing it, and that is that you enjoy playing it, and that it's fun, basically, and that's really all that matters. So you've probably heard this before, but opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one. So don't let anyone else tell you that your build sucks. As long as you enjoy it, that's really all that matters. Number 2, get a pen and a paper ready, because you'll write down a lot of armor pieces, a lot of weapons, a lot of skills, and you'll lose track of them if you don't write them down. You'll definitely forget something, and at the end of the day that might ruin the build, or might, maybe not ruin, but at least you're missing out on some important synergy or skills or damage, survivability, whatever it may be. So get a pen and a paper ready. And then number 3 is finish the story, because if you finish the story, there's a likelihood that you killed almost all the monsters and you have basically discovered all the armor pieces that come from the specific monster. From there you can go ahead and basically search for armor pieces and skills, and then you can start creating your builds and your sets, and you know exactly what you need to farm for. If you haven't discovered an armor piece yet, well then you don't know what kind of skills would be on it, and maybe it would be a lot better in your build than something you have that you're currently wearing. So I highly recommend finishing the story and killing at least every monster once, so you discover the armor pieces. So with that being said, let's go into the details. So there are basically 2 types of builds, at least in my opinion. There are, the normal regular builds that you create and you look out for synergy within the skills, and like you try to get a high amount of attack or crit or whatever. And then there are the style builds. The style builds to me are just builds where you go for fashion rather than the skills. So those we're not going to cover here because they're really easy to do. You just go for armor that looks great to you, and you choose a weapon that's visually interesting to you, and then you go ahead and do that. But that you don't really need a guide to do that. For the purpose of this video, we're going to talk about the regular builds. And step number 1 is you basically have to choose a weapon. It can be any weapon that you want. Just make sure that you have some knowledge of it. So maybe try it out in the training area first. Get a little idea of what you're using, because you need to know, for example, let's say you want to try the dual blaze, right? the dual blades lose sharpness very quickly compared to, let's say, a hammer or maybe a switch axe, something like that. So you need to be aware of the little details about a weapon. It's very important because it's going to make your build a lot better. So get to know the weapon first a little bit. That can be in a training area, that can be in a fight. Just and you can go ahead and even kill like a low rank Jagras or something, because you don't really need a top tier upgraded level to kill a low rank Jagras. It's just what's really important is that you get to know the weapon a little bit, and you know what's going to be strong with the weapon and what's going to be weak with the weapon. So for example, with the dual blades, as I said, the sword and shield, the insect glaive, they lose sharpness very quickly, and you need to know that in order to get the most out of your build. Once you chose your weapon type, you can go ahead and choose a specific weapon tree. When you create a build, usually you have two options. You can go ahead and choose the armor pieces and the skills first, and then choose a weapon type that goes well, or a weapon tree that goes well with it. Number two, and that's the more common version, I think, is that you choose the weapon tree first and the version of the weapon that you want, and then you go ahead and choose the armor and skills that support it, and basically make up for the strengths and weaknesses. So things you need to keep in mind are basically the attack value. Is it a high attack value, a low attack value? The sharpness, is there any room for improvement? Or like this Nergigante one, is it already at full sharpness? So you wouldn't benefit from handicraft at all. Does it have positive affinity? Does it have negative affinity? Does it have an element or doesn't it have an element? And then, does it have slots or augmentations? Those two things are usually not as important when you create a build. You don't really need to keep slots and augmentations in mind too much. Well, augmentations more than slots in my opinion. But for example, if you have a weapon with negative affinity, can you basically make up for it by augmenting it? Can you go to at least 0% affinity? Let's see, let's take a look here. This one, for example, negative 10% affinity, and has two augmentation slots. You could make up for the negative 10% affinity by augmenting it once. You would be at 0%, and so on and so forth. So those are things you need to keep in mind. At the end of the day, Monster Hunter did a great job kind of like balancing all the weapons. I mean, yes, there are some that are better than others, but in a good build, they all are viable, and you can all go ahead and use any weapon that you want, as long as you basically create a build around it and support its strengths, and basically try to negate the weaknesses that you have. Once you chose a weapon type, you can go ahead and try to figure out what kind of build you're going to create. Do you want to do a high base attack build, or you want to do a high critical chance build, or maybe you want to do a mix of both of them? And that's something that kind of depends on the weapon a little bit, because if you have a weapon with, let's say, negative 20 or 30% affinity, it's very unlikely that you're going to create a high critical build. I mean, it's still possible, but it's very unlikely that you get to, let's say, 100% critical hit chance, just because you already have to make up for the 30 negative affinity. In that case, usually if a weapon has negative affinity, it comes with a higher base attack, so maybe you're better off just trying to negate the negative affinity, bring it to 0%, or maybe a little bit into the positive, and then go for a high amount of attack or base attack. Usually you benefit more from something like that. But if a weapon comes with, let's say, 20% positive affinity, maybe it's a good idea to go to 80, 90, or 100% affinity, and then the rest into attack or survivability skills. So that's totally up to you, but you gotta figure that out first. And once you have done that, let's go to the next step. So the next step I usually do is, once I chose my weapon and the type of build I want to go for, I go to the smithy, I go to Forge Equipment, and then press R3 on the PlayStation. I go to skills, and then I go through all the skills and check what skill specifically impacts my weapon's damage. So some of them are universal, like attack boost, weakness exploit, critical eye to increase our affinity. All of those are universal and pretty much affect every weapon in the game. However, there are some that are specific and might or might not affect your weapon. For example, poison attack. If you are using a poison weapon, then poison attack is going to increase your weapon damage. If you use a Elementless weapon, however, none of these are going to affect your damage, and you should not use these skills. Same if you're using, let's say, a poison weapon, but you have Dragon Attack skills in your set, well, you don't add Dragon Attack to your weapon. This only increases Dragon Element if you, for example, already have it on a weapon. It doesn't add it to a weapon, so keep that in mind. So you want to go through all of these. If you are familiar with them, you might not need to write them down. However, if you're still struggling, then maybe you should go ahead and write some of them down, so you know which ones are kind of like universal, which ones will affect your weapons damage. Like Part Breaker pretty much affects almost all weapons, almost. Weakness Exploit, Critical Boost, Critical Eye, those are really affecting pretty much all weapons. Again, normal shots, piercing shots, that's only affecting range weapons. So if you're doing a melee build, you can disregard all of these. So keep these in mind and then write them down and try to narrow it down to a couple of these skills which seem the most important to you. Another thing to keep in mind when you look at the skills is looking at the various set bonuses that you can get, and you will find those on page 7 and 8. So you can go ahead and look through all of these, and sometimes it's worth creating a build that basically focuses on a specific set bonus and also a weapon that benefits from it, obviously. One of the more common ones is the Rathalos Mastery, at least the 2 set bonus, because it increases your elemental damage whenever you land a critical hit. So obviously 2 things are very are standing out. Number 1, you need a weapon that has an element, so obviously an elementless weapon wouldn't benefit from the set at all, but also you need a set that has a decent amount of affinity to even make the set bonus happen or proc once in a while. And usually I would say at least 50% affinity to benefit from this, but as close as 100% as possible will obviously increase the damage. So sometimes it's worth looking at these skills and try to make a build around these skills, like I have done with the dual blades and the Tenderizer technique, for example, because it prevents your weapon from losing sharpness during critical hits. So what I did is I tried to make a build that has a lot of affinity, and with the dual blades and the Tenderizer technique, I basically negated a lot of the sharpness loss. But at the end of the day, you have to choose something, and it's not always worth doing like a set bonus. It's really not always necessary, but sometimes it might help. So keep these in mind and go through these one by one to figure out what you want to do. Another important thing is that you know what kind of decorations you already have and what kind of decorations are actually available in the game, because sometimes you can actually avoid an entire set bonus with one decoration. The one that I'm talking about specifically is Protective Polish. Protective Polish is basically the Odogaron set piece, 4 set piece that you can get, and I'll show you. Go to right here. So Protective Polish, you usually have to wear 4 pieces of the Odogaron set, and basically what that means is your weapon sharpness does not decrease for a set time after sharpening. The set time is 1 minute, by the way. So there is a decoration, it's also called Protective Polish, and basically you can, it's I think a level 2 decoration. You put it in a decoration slot and you get the entire set bonus from the 4 pieces that you usually would have to wear. So obviously that is big, so if you know that those are in the game, some of the set bonuses are in the game, like the 4 set bonus of the bow right here, like the bow charge plus, that's also decoration that's in the game, but a lot of these are actually not, or not at this point at least. So don't worry about these too much, but you gotta know what kind of decorations are out there, what kind of decorations you can get, and then you can keep those in mind to further increase your builds. So with that being said, sometimes a particular decoration makes your life a lot easier and gives you more versatility when it comes to creating a build. The one that I'm talking about specifically is the Tenderizer Jewel. The Tenderizer Jewel gives you 1 level of weakness exploit, and it's a level 2 decoration. And this one is pretty big just because weakness exploit is, I think, arguably one of the best decorations in the game, and I'm gonna show you something real quick. So when we sort it, and let's say we want to do a high crit build, we want to go to weakness exploit, because this is kind of like a must-have, because it increases our affinity by 50%. As you can read it here, it increases our affinity by 50% if we get it to level 3 whenever we hit a weak spot of the monster, which we should do all the time anyway, because we deal more damage this way. So if you have the Tenderizer Jewel, which gives you, again, 1 level, you can go ahead and use the Dragon King eye patch, and that's why this one is used in so many builds, because it gives you 2 levels of weakness exploit. It also has a level 3 decoration slot, which means you can put in the Tenderizer Jewel in there, and basically with 1 piece of gear, you go all the way to level 3 already. So you increase your affinity by 50% with 1 piece of equipment. And this is why this is so good. If you don't have the Tenderizer Jewel, however, and you still want to go to level 3, which is often very important to do, you have to go, let's say, with the Dragon King eye patch, and then you have to go with something like the Teostra hands, because they give you 1 level, they also give you a level 3 decoration slot. What you try to avoid to do is go for, let's say, the ranking eye patch, again 2 levels, and then with something like the Rathalos mail, because it gives you another 2 levels, but you can only have 3, so why would you waste that, the additional level? Like, you don't need it. So maybe stay away from that. Also, sometimes, let's say this coil here, the Teostra coil, it gives you 1 level of weakness exploit. However, it comes with blast attack. Now, if you use an elementalist weapon or a poison weapon, well, you will not benefit from blast attack, and it's a wasted skill. So you want to try to keep down the amount of wasted skills, like, to 0, basically. You don't want to have any skills that you don't benefit from, but sometimes, you cannot really choose, because sometimes let's say you already have a piece of hand that's really important to you and you can't use these anymore. Well, then maybe you have to go with the coil and just deal with the blast attack, but you want to try not to do that. Lastly, I want to say that a lot of things that create a good build, they just come from experience. Knowing your weapon, knowing a lot of skills, and trying to figure out what skills work well with each other, that's gonna help you improve upon your builds. So just keep on playing, keep grinding, and if you feel like your build could be improved or something is bothering about your build, don't be afraid of trying to change it and experiment with it, and then, see what works and what doesn't work. I hope you found this video helpful, and now you should have all the tools to go ahead and create a build of your own. Just keep the things in mind that I talk about, and if there's anything you feel like I missed or that should be added to the list, just post it in the comments down below. Same if you create a good build and you want to share it, just post it in the comments. I'm sure other people would be interested in seeing what kind of armor and skills you're using. With that being said, we're really close to 1,000 subscribers. Maybe by the end of this week we'll get there. And as I promised, we'll have a giveaway, and I'll post a separate video for the giveaway and the link to it once we actually reach 1,000 subscribers. And then I was thinking of maybe doing a live stream to announce the winner, but obviously I'll contact the winner as well in case they can't make it to the live stream. But yeah, we'll worry about the details when it time comes. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.